Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Unpack This. I am the authentic coach, Gloria Bailey Ray, and today's episode is for the woman who has been quietly becoming, the woman who has been healing, rebuilding, learning how to trust herself again. I'm talking about the woman who has been outgrowing old patterns, old relationships, old expectations, and old identities, and old rooms that no longer have the capacity to hold who she is becoming. So today we're talking about no longer hiding, living out loud in your becoming season. Because let me tell you something. There comes a season in a woman's life when hiding no longer fits. Not because she has everything figured out or because she's fearless, not even because she has arrived at some perfect version of herself, but because she's reached a point where shrinking no longer feels safe, silence no longer feels peaceful, pretending no longer feels spiritual, and waiting for permission no longer feels aligned. Come on now. I know this, you guys. Oh, it's a good one today. See, there comes a moment when a woman says, I did not survive everything I survived just to keep living as a smaller version of myself. And this is where this conversation is begin. Because in our last episode, I talked about the dangerous power of a woman who trusts herself. And in that episode, I talked about intuition, discernment, boundaries, self-trust, and the courage that it takes for a woman to finally believe her own voice again. But today, we're going a step further because I want to talk about once a woman trusts herself internally, the next question becomes, what does she do with that trust externally? How does she show up? How does she speak? How does she make decisions? How does she stop apologizing for her growth? And how does she live in public what she has finally reclaimed in private? Oh yeah, come on, y'all. As I said, I'm the authentic coach. And this is what living out loud is. Living out loud is not about being loud for attention. And it certainly is not about performing confidence. It's not about proving to people that you are strong or living out loud. It's not about being visible, I guess. Yeah, being visible in your truth, but it is about making choices that match the woman that you're becoming. Living out loud is no longer about hiding your wisdom, your voice, your age, your gifts, your dreams, your standards, your power, or your purpose, just because other people may not know. Catch this, may not know what to do with the fullness of you. Because I want to tell you this, hiding may have protected you in one season, but it cannot promote you into the next, right? So, with that being said, I just want to talk about how many women learn how to hide very early. Some learn to hide their intelligence because they were told they were too opinionated. There were some women who hid their emotions because they were told they were too sensitive. How about this one? There's so many women who learn to hide their ambition because they were told they're doing way too much. And then this piece, it still gets me. Some women have learned to hide their beauty because somebody made them feel unsafe being seen. And I know there's some of you out there listening today, you learned to hide your pain because you had to be strong for everybody else. You learned to hide your dreams because they were surrounded by people who could only understand survival. They didn't have any dreams. And there are some women who learned to hide their truth because every time they told the truth, somebody punished them, whether it was emotionally, whether it was spiritually, professionally, or relationally. And I can relate to all of those. So let's be clear. Hiding does not always start as weakness. It basically starts as protection. Hiding starts as survival. And sometimes hiding starts because a woman is trying to stay safe in rooms that do not honor her voice. But here's the problem. What began as protection can actually become a prison, ladies. And at some point, every woman has to ask herself, am I still hiding because I need to be protected? Or am I hiding because I have become afraid of being fully seen? And that's an honest question. Because so many women are not actually powerless, they are hidden. You said, well, authentic, what do you mean by that? Their wisdom is hidden, their voice is hidden, their creativity is hidden, their leadership is hidden, their beauty is hidden, their confidence is hidden. Come on, y'all. But their next chapter is hidden behind fear, obligation, shame, people pleasing, old labels, and the need to be understood by people who are not even committed to understanding themselves. Y'all feel me when I say this. And let me tell you something I know for sure. A woman in her becoming season cannot keep asking old versions of people for permission to become new. You ladies get that? You cannot keep shrinking yourself to make people comfortable. You cannot keep making yourself digestible for people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You cannot even keep presenting the edited version of yourself and then wonder why you feel unseen. So, what I do know, sometimes we are not unseen because people cannot see us. Sometimes we are unseen because we have been hiding the very parts of ourselves that need to be released. See, I know what it means to have seasons where you measure your words, where you walk in the rooms and you're aware of how you may be perceived, where you're thinking about tone, you're thinking about delivery, you're thinking about whether people are ready to hear the truth, you're thinking about whether your confidence will be mislabeled as arrogance, right? Thinking about whether your directness will be called aggression, thinking about whether your leadership will make people uncomfortable. And I want to tell you, if you're a woman, especially a woman who has lived, worked, led, served, coached, written, spoke, and survived some other things, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Because there are rooms where women are expected to be competent, but not confident, helpful but not visible, strong but not vocal, wise but not corrective, experienced but not too threatening. And what happens is after a while, you get tired of trying to be powerful in a way that does not disturb anyone. Because hear me when I say this, becoming will disturb some folks. Your growth is going to disturb some people. Your confidence is going to disturb some people. Setting boundaries is going to disturb some people. And your visibility will disturb some, it's going to disturb some people. And sometimes the people who are most disturbed by your becoming are the people who actually benefited from you hiding. Check that. So not everybody's going to celebrate the version of you they can no longer control. And I need you to hear this. That may be hard to hear. Absolutely. But I want to tell you, it's the truth. Some people were comfortable when you were unsure or when you were quiet or when you over explained and over apologized for having needs. Um, you know, they were comfortable while you waited to be chosen. They were comfortable when you softened the truth so they didn't have to confront their own behavior. But when a woman stops hiding, she changes the agreement, not by asking for permission, but by deciding that, guess what? She no longer is going to abandon herself to keep the peace. And you need to say this to yourself. I am allowed to be seen in the season I am in. Y'all get that? Say it again. I am allowed to be seen in the season I am in. And I'm not talking about the season someone else understands or someone else approves of, or not the season where everybody claps. I'm talking about the season right now that you're in. See, living out loud requires a woman to release the old identities that have kept her small. And by the way, y'all, whether this is in job, co-workers, friendship, family, listen, I want to just talk about those all identities because some of us were the responsible ones. We were the strong ones, the fixer, the caretaker. How about the good girl, the professional woman who never complained, or the woman who made it look easy, or held everything together, could figure it out by herself, didn't need any help, the woman who swallowed her disappointment and kept moving. Even the woman who stayed composed when she was breaking inside. And I want to say this, yes, some of those identities helped us survive. But I want to be real clear. Survival identities are not always becoming identities. The version of you, hear me when I say this, that survived may not be the version of you that is supposed to lead your next chapter. And that's why I'm talking this series 3, Becoming. That's why becoming can feel uncomfortable. Because you're not just stepping into something new. You are grieving who you had to be. You are grieving the roles you outgrew. You are grieving the places where you were praised for abandoning yourself. Some of you are even grieving the versions of who you thought being needed was the same as being loved. Not? You're grieving the versions of who you thought being exhausted meant valuable. You're grieving the versions of who you confused being chosen with being cherished, right? And how about that version of yourself that you're grieving who stayed hidden because visibility felt dangerous? So let me say this with love. You can honor who you were without remaining loyal to who you had to become in survival. You can respect the woman who carried you through survival and still refuse to let survival define your future. And ladies, that is what becoming is about. That's maturity. That's healing. That is power. So, you got to pen, write this down. I honor who I was, but I am not imprisoned by who I had to be. Okay. Now, let me talk to you about confidence real quickly because confidence is often misunderstood, especially when it comes to us as women. See, some people think confidence means you never doubt yourself. And that's not true. Some people may think confidence means you're always bold, and that's not true either. Or how about this? Some people may see your confidence, and it means you walk into every room and you're completely fearless. That's not true either. See, real confidence is not the absence of fear. Real confidence is the decision to move with self-respect, even when fear is present. Real confidence is basically you saying, I may be nervous, but I still belong. I may be learning, but I am still capable. I may be evolving, but I'm still worthy. I may not have everyone's approval, but I have my own. And for women in the becoming season, confidence often looks different. It's not always loud. It's not always flashy. It's not always dressed up for applause. But confidence is quiet. Confidence is walking into, or I should say, walking away from a scene um, and not making a big deal out of it. Confidence is not responding. Oof, let's get this, to everything that tries to pull you backwards. Sometimes confidence is changing your mind without guilt. And sometimes confidence is starting over at an age when other people think you need to be going somewhere and sit down, settling down. I want to tell you, ladies, confidence is about launching that business that you've been desiring to do. Confidence is about you writing the book, recording the podcast, speaking the truth, going back to school, changing careers. How about leaving some of those relationships? Confidence about moving differently, showing up online, showing up in rooms. How about just showing up for yourself? In this season, confidence in the becoming season basically says, I am not waiting until I am perfect to be visible. That is important because perfectionism is one of the ways that women hide. We sit back and say, I'll start when I lose the weight. Oh, y'all, come on. I had so many ups and downs in terms of weight. Guess what? There are a myriad of reasons, health, medication, who knows? But when you say, I'll speak when I know more, I'll launch this project when everything is perfect. I'll show up when I feel ready. I'll post when I look better. I'll make the move when I have no fear. I'll tell my story when it's polished. I want to tell you something right now. Sometimes readiness is not a feeling. Sometimes readiness is just simply a decision. You do not become visible by waiting until you are fearless. You become visible by deciding that fear no longer gets the final vote. Ladies, that is living out loud. When I think about my own journey, I think about the moments when I had to stop waiting for everything to feel perfect. There were seasons when I had to trust the voice that was inside of me, the voice that told me, write those books, have the conversation, start the show, say what needs to be said, step into the leadership role, walk away from what no longer fits, tell the truth even if your voice shakes. And I want to tell you, let me be honest. Growth does not always feel glamorous, especially while you are in it. Sometimes growth or becoming, it feels messy. It feels lonely. It feels like you're outgrowing people faster than you can explain. Sometimes growth feels like you're building and healing at the same time. Sometimes it feels like you're confident in public while still asking God for strength in private. Ladies, all of that is real. And that's why I do not romanticize becoming. It's beautiful, but it's not always easy. Because to become, you have to release the comfort of being who people expected you to be. You guys feel me on that? Let me say this. Some people only know the version of you they met. They have no idea about the version of you that had to heal. They know nothing about the version of you that cried behind closed doors. They do not know the version of you that had to rebuild after disappointment. They do not even know the version of you that had to learn how to even stop betraying your own self. Y'all, they don't know that version. They don't know the version of you that you had to gather the pieces and say, I'm still here. So, nope, let me be real clear. Not everyone will understand your becoming. But guess what? They don't have to understand it for you to live it. Why do I say that? Because your becoming does not require universal understanding. So let me transition, talk a little bit about visibility, because that's where so many women struggle. They want the next chapter, they want the opportunity, they want the relationship or the business, the platform. How about even the voice or the impact or the life? But so many of you are still hiding. And I want to be real careful here because living out loud does not mean everybody needs access to everything. You guys hear me say this over and over again. See, privacy is still powerful. Discernment is still necessary. Boundaries still matter. But privacy and hiding, they're not the same thing. Privacy basically says, I choose what I want to share, and hiding says, I'm afraid to be known. Privacy is empowered. Hiding is fear-based. Privacy protects your peace, and hiding protects insecurity. Privacy, hear me, ladies, is intentional, and hiding is restricted. So the question becomes, are you private or are you hiding? Are you protecting your peace or avoiding your power? Are you being discerning or delaying your purpose? Or how about, are you waiting for the right time or are you afraid of being seen trying? These are not easy questions, I get it, but becoming requires honesty. Because, see, you cannot heal what you keep pretending is not there. Visibility is not vanity when it's connected to purpose. Okay? Some women have been taught That wanting to be seen is prideful, wanting to be heard is selfish, wanting recognition is attention seeking, wanting more is ungrateful. But what if your visibility, just think about it for a moment, is connected to somebody else's breakthrough? What if your story helps another woman name her own? Just what if your courage gives another woman permission to stop hiding? What if your voice is not just for you? What if your becoming is not just personal, but purposeful? See, that changes the conversation. Because when you live out loud from a place of purpose, you're not showing off, ladies. You're showing up. All right? All right. So let me talk about one of my favorite subjects, age. Because this season, the Becoming has been very intentional about honoring women who are becoming, whether you're 50, 60, 70, and beyond. One of the biggest lies that society tells women is that there is an expiration date on becoming. That at a certain age, you should just quiet down. You need to fade back. You need to settle. You need to stop dreaming so boldly. Hey, why are you trying to reinvent yourself? You need to stop wanting more and quit taking up space. But let me just tell you, I'll be damned, I reject that completely. A woman does not lose her right to become because she has lived. In fact, the more that a woman has lived, the more she may finally know what becoming requires. And there's a different kind of power that comes with when a woman has lived long enough to stop negotiating with foolishness, y'all. Long enough to know what peace costs, long enough to understand that time is precious, long enough to recognize when something is draining her, long enough to stop confusing attention with love, and long enough to know that being busy is not the same as being fulfilled. She's lived long enough to say, I don't have time to keep betraying myself. Ladies, that's power and wisdom, and that is becoming. You're not too old to become. You are too wise to keep pretending that you are not ready. Just let that sit with you for a moment, right? Just hold on to that. And I want you to say this, that you're not behind, you're becoming with wisdom, right? So for the woman who feels like she is hidden for years, maybe you hid inside of a marriage or a job title or motherhood or caregiving. And some of you, how about you hid inside church work, community work, or leadership, where you served everyone else, but you neglected yourself? And the thing is, you hid behind being dispensable, being strong. I'm fine. Maybe you hid behind being needed. And guess what? All of a sudden, but it hasn't been all of a sudden. It just seems like all of a sudden to you're waking up to the reality that people know what you do for them, but they do not even know who you are. And for some of you, that's going to be painful. That's going to be a painful awakening to realize that you've been present in everybody else's life, but absent from your own. So to realize that you've been visible in service, but invisible in desire. And the painful thing is for you to realize you've been strong for everybody else, but disconnected from your own self, your own creativity, your own needs, your own dreams, right? But I'm going to tell you, here's the good news. You can come back to yourself. You can reclaim yourself. You can reintroduce yourself to your own life. You can ask, what do I want now? What brings me joy? What no longer fits? What am I ready to release? What part of me have I hidden that deserves light now? And that's the operative word, now. Now matters because some women are trying to make decisions based on who they used to be, but your becoming requires you to get reacquainted with who you are now. I'm not talking about 20 years ago, right? I'm not talking about before you had heartbreak, career shift, illnesses, all kind of disappointments, or even before the weekend. Now, I'm talking about right now. Who are you now? What do you know now? What do you need now? What do you, get this, refuse to keep carrying now? What are you finally ready to say out loud? See, becoming begins when women stop asking who you used to be and start honoring who you are now. That's where freedom begins, lady. That's why we do this. Becoming, right? Season 3. Now, let me talk about fear. Fear being judged. Because so many of you women are hiding behind, the fear of being judged. So I want to help some of you today, right? You can hide and still be judged. You can be quiet and still be judged. You can even be kind and still be judged. You can do everything right and still be judged. And no matter how much you shrink, soften, smile, accommodate, explain, perform, sacrifice, there are going to be some folks that are still going to be judging you. So if people are going to have an opinion anyway, this is what I say: why not live? Why not tell the truth? Why not become? And why not honor yourself? Listen, I need you to stop making yourself smaller for people who will still find something to criticize. Always. That is not permission to be reckless, but that is permission to be free. And there is a difference, right? Living out loud does not mean living without wisdom, but it does mean living without self-abandonment. It means that you are no longer letting criticism become your cage. It got you locked in. Some people gonna tell you you've changed. I'm gonna say to you, good. You were supposed to. You're going to have some people that are going to say you're different. I'm still going to say good. Growth should make you different. And you're going to even have folks who are going to say you're not the same anymore. Good. The same version of you could not carry the life you've been already becoming ready for. So what I'm saying, what am I saying? What am I saying? I'm saying do not let people shame you for evolving, y'all. Do not let people guilt you for becoming healthier. Don't let people make your growth sound like betrayal just because they preferred that older version of you that required less from them. And like I said, I'm going to say it again. Your growth will feel like betrayal to some who were attached to your silence. Just let that land softly there. Um, you need to know this. You need to say to yourself, I am allowed to change. I am allowed to grow. I am allowed to become. I am allowed to live out loud, right? Now, when you're living out loud, let me tell you, it's going to change relationships. When you stop hiding, some connections are going to deepen, but some of them are going to dissolve. And that is the reality. When you begin speaking honestly and setting boundaries, naming your needs, and making choices from self-trust, you're going to quickly discover, hear what I say, how or who was connected to the real you and who was connected to your compliance. And in some cases, that might hurt. We want people to understand and to celebrate our becoming, but everybody can't go with you into every season. Mm. And that does not always mean they're bad people. Sometimes it just means that the relationship was built around an older version of you, an older agreement, an older pattern. And when you change, the relationship has to either mature or reveal its limits. And a woman who has to be brave enough to stop forcing expired connections, let me tell you, she has to do it to fit a current alignment. And that's hard. If you're a becoming woman, you have to be brave enough to stop forcing expired connections. They say if it don't fit, don't force it, right? That's hard. Sometimes the history is real, the love was real, the memories were real, but You need to understand this. Real history does not always mean current alignment, and we need to be honest about that. You can love the history, but do not let the history hold you hostage. And I know some of you guys needed to hear that. Love the history, honor the history, but don't let it hold you hostage, right? I had to learn this, that in every relationship that some relationships, I should say, most of them, they don't have the capacity to hold every version of me. Some people can celebrate your service, but not your success. I had to learn that. It was hard. Some people can handle your pain, but not your power. I also had to learn that some people can support you when you are rebuilding, but they actually start to feel threatened when you are rising. And some people, they love that humble version of you, but they struggle with the healed version of you. And that's why discernment matters. And I want you ladies to get that, right? It is critical because living out loud does not mean dragging everybody along with you. Sometimes living out loud means blessing people and moving forward. Bless them, move forward. And you move forward, there's no apology, there's no bitterness, there's no begging to be understood. Why? Because guess what? You've matured. You understand that this is peace. You understand that this is becoming. And I think one of my affirmations was, I release the need to be understood by everyone. So let me talk to you about purpose. Because becoming is not just about self expression, it's about contribution. There are gifts in you that cannot serve anyone while they are hidden. You guys get that? There are conversations you're supposed to have, rooms you're supposed to enter, books you're supposed to write, right? Stories you're supposed to tell, businesses you're supposed to build, programs you're supposed to create, women you are supposed to encourage, and cycles you are supposed to break. And sometimes the reason the next level feels blocked is because you're still waiting to be picked for something you were already called to build. Oh man, let me say that again. Sometimes you are waiting to be picked for something you were already called to build. That's a word for some of you because there comes a season when you stop waiting at the door and you start building the room. You don't wait to be invited. You start building your own table. You stop waiting for someone to validate your expertise and start honoring the life, that trained you. You stop asking, do you see me? And start asking, am I showing up fully? Purpose requires visibility, ladies, not always celebrity, not always a big platform, not always thousands of followers, but visibility. Somebody has to know what you carry. Somebody has to hear your voice. Somebody has to experience your gift. And somebody has to be impacted by your courage. Because I want to tell you this, a hidden gift may feel safe, but a released gift becomes service. Your gift is not for storage. Don't believe that hype that somebody's telling you, I wouldn't tell anybody that. Your gift is not for storage. Your voice is not just for private conversation. And your wisdom is not just for your journal. Your story is not just for memory. There is purpose attached to you becoming, right? And if you decide to hide, there is the cost of hiding. Hiding does have a cost, and sometimes what happens, many of us don't count the cost because hiding feels comfortable. But hiding can cost you opportunities. It can cost you relationships that require honesty. It can cost you, when you hide, confidence. Hiding can cost you creativity. It can cost you money. It can cost you peace. And it can cost you years. It can cost you the life you keep saying you want, right? And here's the part that is hard. Sometimes hiding does not look like hiding. It looks like being busy. It looks like helping everybody else. It looks like over planning, constantly preparing, but never launching. And in some cases, hiding sometimes look like the piece of researching, studying, thinking, praying, talking, and waiting while never actually moving. Now, let me be real clear. Preparation is important, wisdom is important, timing is important. But procrastination dressed up as preparation is still fear. And at some point, you have to ask, am I preparing or am I postponing? And that question will tell on you. It's told on me before, because sometimes we say we're waiting for clarity when what we really need is courage. Sometimes we say we're waiting for support when what we really need is self-trust. And sometimes we say we're waiting for the right time when what we really need is to stop giving fear leadership authority over our lives. Because I want to tell you, ladies, hear me. Fear can ride in the car, but it cannot hold the steering wheel. That's a word. That is how I want you to think about it. You may feel fear. You may feel nervous. You may feel uncertain, but fear does not get to drive. Not in your becoming season. Fear may be present, but it is not in charge, right? So living out loud, let me talk with you. Look, this is not just about an inspiration. This is an application. Living out loud means having a conversation you keep avoiding. It may mean updating your bio to really reflect who you are now. It may mean posting the message, applying for the opportunity. It may mean ending those relationships. It may mean saying no without writing a dissertation. Y'all feel me? And listen, living out loud may mean saying yes to something that scares you in a good way. It may mean changing your style, changing your schedule, your circle, changing your standards, changing your language, changing the way you introduce yourself, changing the way you let people access you, right? Sometimes living out loud begins with one sentence. This is what I want now. Or how about this? That no longer works for me. Or I have changed my mind. I am proud of what I have built. I'm no longer available for that. Or I am ready to be seen. Listen, do not underestimate the power of one honest sentence. For men and women, one honest sentence is the beginning of freedom. Your voice doesn't have to be loud to be liberated. It just needs to be honest. That is living out loud. Honesty, alignment, presence, ownership, right? And let me quickly talk to you about apologizing, right? Women apologize too much for becoming. You apologize for changing, for needing space, for having boundaries, for being available. You apologize for being tired. You apologize for wanting more. I mean, ladies, think about how can you apologize, but you do it for being gifted, for being direct, for being proud, for being visible. You even apologize for outgrowing the old version of yourselves. Listen, stop apologizing for becoming the woman you prayed to become. Stop apologizing for the healing you fought for. Stop apologizing for the confidence you earned. Stop apologizing for the boundaries that saved your peace. And I need you to stop apologizing for the wisdom that came from surviving hard things. And more importantly, you need to stop apologizing for choosing yourself. I need to be clear. Accountability, humility, kindness is all important. But an unnecessary apology is really and truly often a sign that a woman is still trying to make her growth more comfortable for other people. And in your becoming season, you must learn the difference between considerate and being self-erasing. See, you can be kind without disappearing. You can be loving without shrinking. You can be graceful without giving people unlimited access. You can be humble without hiding your gifts. You can be confident without being arrogant. And for some of you, you need to know this. You can be visible without being vain. You can be powerful without being hard. And there is nothing wrong with you being soft. Doesn't mean you're weak. And you can become without being sorry. Your affirmation for today is I don't have to apologize for becoming whole, right? And for the woman who's afraid that living out loud will make her too much, and when I say too much, meaning too visible, too bold, or Too honest or ambitious or different or change or too confident or too late or too old or too new, too much. Let me say this clearly. You are not too much for the life that is aligned with you. You may be too much for people committed to smallness, too much for rooms built on silence, too much for relationships that require your self-abandonment, and how about too much for systems that prefer your compliance, or for people who only know how to love you when you are useful? But I want to tell you today, sis, you're not too much. You are becoming honest. You're becoming more whole and grounded and awake and discerning, more yourself. And maybe the people who call you too much are simply confronting the parts of them that they have not given permission to live, right? So I want you to know that sometimes your freedom irritates people because it reminds them of their own captivity, right? That's another nugget. Sometimes your freedom irritates people because it reminds them of their own captivity. But guess what? That's not your burden to carry. You cannot shrink enough to heal someone else's insecurity. You cannot dim enough to make someone else feel bright. And you cannot hide enough to make someone else comfortable in their own life, right? Just know that you are living out loud. And living out loud, it feels like peace after honesty, relief after release. It feels like nervousness mixed with courage. It feels like finally breathing in rooms where you used to hold your breath. It feels like, you know, wearing the color or posting the picture or saying the thing that you wanted to say, or taking the trip, launching an idea, walking into the room, choosing the life. It feels like no longer negotiating with the old story that said, "Who do you think you are?" And answering back, "I am a woman who finally knows." That, ladies, is living out loud. It's not arrogance. It's not a rival. And not a rival as in perfection, but a rival as in presence. I'm here. I am awake. I am participating in my own life. I am no longer waiting on permission. I am no longer hiding from becoming. Ladies, if this message resonated with you today, please share it with someone else. Share it with someone else who would benefit from this. And remember, never ever shrink yourself to keep somebody else warm, right? I am the Authentic Coach. As always, be sure and join me. And for more of Living Out Loud, you can check out When to Get Up from the Table When Love is Not Being Served on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Ingram Sparks. Until this time next week, peace and blessing, y'all. God bless.
We don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long, got to keep going. Don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long, got to keep going. Don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long, got to keep going. Don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long, got to keep going. What you want to be, go and you will see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be, go and you will see. You can have everything you want.